have Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana taking on Arjun Erigaisi at the third round of the Norway Chess 2025. We have the guest of honor here who is going to make the first move, the well-known statistician Ismail Mehmet here.
Finally, we have Mehmet
And
Please make your move.
I believe he's going to play the first move. He opens with 1d4. Is Fabi going to play that move? I think he's going to take it back and open with what he would like to do here. Arjun versus Fabi is the encounter that will also happen in the India-USA match later this year. That's going to be a lot of fun. And e4 played by Caruana. Right now Arjun is slightly higher rated than Fabi, but it's been clear that Caruana is one of the finest classical chess players in the world of chess. e6, French defense by Arjun. And Fabi here goes for d4. And d5 played by Ajubai. Knight comes to c3, the classical variation of the French. And Arjun, will he go for the whenever? No, he goes for knight to f6. And Fabi pushes the pawn forward. Arjun goes back, knight to d7. And the idea is to strike here with c5. f4 has been one of the main moves, but knight ce2 is gaining popularity after Gukesh played it against Ding. c5 is met with c3. And that's the plan here. That's why you bring your knight back. Then you play your pawn to f4. And then knight comes out to f3. Arjun brings his knight out to c6. And now Fabi here plays the move h4. Very interesting move. In fact, it's such a new idea. It's been only played in 2 games before. But Arjun, if you look at it, he's well prepared. He plays f6 within a minute. This is why Arjun's one of the best prepared players out there. He's always ready with his move. And now Caruana comes back and plays his knight to f4, attacking the e6 pawn. Also in some positions threatening queen h5, because g6 will be met with knight takes g6 and the rook would be hanging here. Pawn takes pawn by Arjun, undeterred. Arjun's like, I'm okay with this. If queen h5, there's king e7. And that's fine. So he takes on e6, attacking the queen. The best move is queen b6, and he finds it. Queen comes out to b6, putting pressure in the center on the f2 point. And Fabi goes queen b3, an important move, because if you played knight f8, nd e5 gives black already a good position. So queen b3 played. Arjun takes on c3, still blitzing out his moves. Seems to be in his preparation. And Caruana just making sure that he doesn't make any mistakes here, because the position is so sharp that any mistake here could be fatal. Now think about it. If queen takes queen, knight takes, and if you go for a check here, king f7, and if you take on a8, then in this position bishop b4, and black's already better here. So pawn takes pawn, queen a5 played by Arjun, a very important move, so that knight c7 is now no longer possible after the trade of queens. Knight takes f8. He takes here, he doesn't take on f8, and I think that's the best move. Again, knight takes f8 met with knight e5. So he plays e takes f6, and now knight takes on f6. Arjun attacks the knight here. Knight takes on f8, and I think taking back with the rook makes a lot of sense. It feels like Arjun has got a great position out of the opening. The only downside to Arjun's position is that white has the bishop pair, which can be super active on this open board. But apart from that, bishop could come out, long castle could happen. He plays his bishop to b5. And now, very careful, because If you play something like bishop d7, knight to f3, white seems to be slightly better because his king would be safer on short side. So Arjun here decides to play still very actively, goes knight e4, attacks the pawn on c3 and also the pawn on f2. So he brings the knight out to f3 and now queen takes c3 check. How good is that? Yes, he takes it and Arjun's like, I'm at least going to be a pawn up here. For all the things that you have in this position, I at least have a pawn. Takes on c3, attacking the bishop here. And Fabi goes a4. An important move, because if you take on b5, ab5 attacks the knight here. And maybe there are these ideas of take, knight d4. I'm sure Arjun considered these opportunities, but then decided to play a6 to ask a question to that bishop. Now the best move is to take on c6, b takes c6, but bishop d3 is also playable to bring back the bishop and to keep the bishop pair advantage. He takes on c6 there. Arjun comes back, takes on c6. And now I think the main idea here is to put the bishop on b2, attack the knight. If the knight moves, there's also attack on the g7 pawn. Yes, bishop goes to b2. And Arjun brings back his knight. Now the problem is if you take on g7, there is rook g8 and then you lose the pawn on g2. So the best move here for Fabi is to short castle. And he does it. With this, he gets his king out of the center and also now threatens to take the pawn. Also rook e1, putting the knight under some pressure, could be very good. c5 played by Arjun. Very ambitious play, but also very logical. He's still not afraid of bishop takes g7. He thinks rook f7 is fine. He's a pawn up, so he is ready to give it up. And if he manages to get his bishop here, king to the center, it would be very nice position for him. Rook e1 played by Caruana. And now one interesting move here is rook a7, defending the pawn on g7, but Arjun plays bishop f5. And this is risky because let's imagine my knight jumps here on e5. I then have g4 ideas in the position. Also have f3 ideas, so I have to be very careful here. Rook goes to c1. So Caruana is threatening now rook takes c5 because the knight is pinned here. Black has to play king d7. And Arjun plays it. A good move. King comes on d7. And Fabi now goes knight to e5 with a check. The black king is actually very brave. It's right into the center. It's being threatened by the white army, but it feels safe with two of its pawns. Now, this has become a very sharp position because both Fabi and Arjun want to win. So, while the position could be even, it's actually super sharp. f3, and now knight could jump back to f6, but then there's g4. So, I don't know where the knight will move here. He goes knight to d2. Plays his knight into the center of the board there. And rook c d1 is a very powerful move now that Fabi can play, because he's actually then threatening the king and he finds it. Rook c d1 on the board. The knight moving away would create some knight c4 check threats. Rook opens up there. Yes, knight b3 played. And now g4. Yes, played here. Caruana doing this really, really well. Bishop e6 would be a blunder because of knight c4. Suddenly, king d7, there's knight b6. Too many problems to face. And so he goes bishop c8, Arjun here. And now Fabi can go knight c4 check. That's the best move in the position. Thinks and he plays knight c4. Good move. 23 minutes for Caruana, 28 minutes for Arjun. The e file is closed. You don't go back because then you're losing this pawn. So the only move is king c6. And now comes this beautiful move, bishop g7. Because then if rook f7, I have knight e5 check. Yes, chops off the pawn. Great move by Fabi. And if rook f7, there's knight e5. So you have to go rook g8. Oh, but he takes on c4. What? Why, Arjun? Rook g8, knight e5, and king c7. You can play this position. It's playable. But instead he takes here bishop f8. He brings his knight into the center of the board, threatening the f3 pawn. But there's a winning move that white has. Maybe Arjun missed it. Rook e8. It's a very powerful move, pinning the bishop on c8. And you can see Caruana zoning in. He has 22 minutes. Apart from rook e8, all other moves fine for black. f3 is hanging. Yes, he finds rook e8. Amazing move. c3 played. And now, just defend the pawn. Yes, rook c1. Oh, another nice move. So there's no knight e2 check. The rook defends this square as well. Plays bishop b7. Caruana takes on a8. And now knight e2 check. That's the way in which you can try and create some play with your c pawn. But it is not enough because Fabi seems to have calculated this to the perfection. King f2. Knight takes c1, rook d8. With the idea of rook d1 coming back. Maybe c2 is what you need to play. And he pushes. The pawn is just one square away from queening. The problem is bishop h6 is just going to stop it all. Yes, beautiful move. And even if you make a queen and I take it, I just will then go and chop off this pawn and my kingside pawns are super strong. Caruana pushes the h-pawn. He's investing in his pawns, which are great, and Arjun investing in his own c-pawn. Is this some sort of a race here? And the thing is, you can't go g5 now because it would have blocked the bishop. So first bringing the bishop back and then going for g5, g6. King goes up, king to c5. It's interesting how Arjun's not making this a queen. Bishop e3 check. Maybe king b4, but then there's rook b8. He goes for it and Fabi doesn't even go for rook b8. He's just queening his pawn here. c3 played here by Arjun. And it's time to push even further. g6 played. Pawn takes pawn. And now not this pawn takes pawn because there is knight d2, but in fact h6. Very important move here. Very nicely done. Because now if knight d2, there's rook takes d2. Pawn takes and then this. And if you make a queen here, then I have check and I win back your queen. So c1 queen played here by Arjun takes, knight takes, and rook b8 played. Beautiful move. Knight d3. The king comes up. Now c2 will be met with rook takes b7 and rook c7. H-pawn is unstoppable. Caruana is completely winning here. He's played a brilliant game. Arjun resigns. What a game this has been. And Arjun actually asking Fabi immediately where things went wrong. It's another amazing quality. And he says rook g8, knight e5 check, king c7, bishop h6. They're analyzing that critical line, which Arjun did not like perhaps, but it was the lesser evil than what he chose in the game. It was what he chose. It just didn't work out. And Caruana, like he's known, played like a machine. Just no errors, one good move after another before his opponent collapsed. And with this, Caruana makes a strong comeback in this tournament, initially starting with a loss, but then beating away in the next round. And now Arjun, he's on to 6 points, and a fantastic comeback there for the American.